This might feel like a little bit too wide of a stance for a lot of people. It feels too wide for me. Hey everyone, welcome to class. A couple questions came up this week that kind of come up pretty regularly, but I don't know if I've ever addressed them. So I thought, well, what the heck? Let's do a whole little mini class on this. So the two questions that we're going to be addressing today are, when you're in a sun salutation and you're moving from maybe forward fold back to plank, cobra, up dog, down dog, plank again, a lot of you struggle with this feeling of shuffling your feet all over the place. Like you have to move a little closer to accommodate for the up dog, and then you shift your feet back to go back to down dog. And there's this question of how far away should my feet be from my hands so that I'm shuffling and moving around and adjusting a little bit less. We'll play with this a little bit, and I'll give you some tips that I think will be useful in terms of keeping it a little bit smoother so that you feel like you're, less choppy in your movement. The second thing that we're going to go over is foot cramping in single leg standing poses. This I hear all the time, and I used to struggle with it a lot myself. And I'll give you some form stuff on how to help that, and also some things that you can do to strengthen the foot. So let's get started. So let's begin. I just want you to take a few sun salutations kind of as you would. So no right or wrong. You don't have to keep pace with me. I'm just going to do them right along with you. Just a basic sun salutation. And I want you to pay close attention to how the feet feel, how your form feels, how much you feel like you have to move around to accommodate these poses, these movements. And whether or not that degree of movement and accommodation is bothersome to you. So go through maybe 2 or 3 rounds. And again, you're not paying attention to form or alignment particularly. Just move how you do and take little mental notes of how you feel when you're doing it. And I'm just going to talk you through my own feelings here. So, I've been doing yoga for a long time. I've been I'll be teaching for 20 years in just a couple of years, which is pretty crazy. And I'm very familiar with these movements. I'm comfortable with them, but I do shuffle my feet just a little bit to make room for certain poses. Like I'm going to step back to a plank here, and then I wiggle my feet back a little bit to lower down. Now I untuck my toes, I shift a tiny bit, roll my shoulders back, lift up. I tuck my toes under, and I press up to down dog, and I step my feet forward like half a step so that it feels more comfortable, so that the distance between my hands and feet feels more comfortable. Go ahead and come down to your knees. So notice that while it might look smooth when you see your teacher doing these things, like they're not shuffling around so much, likely they are shuffling around a little bit. It's just you're used to incorporating the shuffle. So I think first things first, accept the fact that there's going to be a little bit of accommodation as you move through these poses, because the distance between your hands and feet has to change a little bit between up dog or between plank and up dog and down dog. The distance between them just is a little bit different. It's not unmoving. So get out of the idea that to do it right, you have to not move or shuffle or adjust at all. You're going to adjust. The real thing is, how much do you need to adjust and how much is bothersome to you? So one of the things that I think is really bothersome for some people, at least the people who asked me this week anyway, when you go from up dog to down dog, you tuck the toes under. And then if you just sit straight back, this might feel like a little bit too wide of a stance for a lot of people. It feels too wide for me. There's too much tension in my calves, and I don't really like it, which is why when I come from up dog to down dog, this is like my first stop. But before I fully settle, I just take a half step in with my feet, and then I can really settle into a variation of down dog that feels good to me. So that's one thing I want you to keep in mind, is that from up dog or cobra, once you tuck those toes under and start to sit back, expect a half step forward to make this feel better. Obviously, if you just don't want to move that much, just keep the feet in a wider stance down dog. Like if you stayed right here in this wide down dog because you came right up from up dog, there's nothing wrong with this. Like there's nothing inherently wrong about this variation. It really is a matter of how comfortable are you in that variation, and then from there you can determine if something needs to change. So that's the first big note that I want you to take away is when you're moving from up dog to down dog, your feet are more than likely going to just step like a half a step in to make it feel more comfortable and more natural. So let's do that together one more time. Let's do a sun salutation where we're expecting the half step in, because I think when you expect a certain adjustment or a certain change within a sequence, it makes it easier. It makes it smoother by default when you expect it versus when you feel like you shouldn't have to, but then you do, and then you're kind of a step behind in your head. You know what I mean? So let's anticipate that half step forward when we're moving from up dog to down dog. Just do basic sun salutation. Again, one time. Flat back. Stepping back to plank. Also here, notice I'm going to wiggle my feet back a little bit and then lower down. We'll talk about that in a second. Roll the shoulders up, tuck the toes, sit back. You're gonna get to down dog, but before you get all the way there, just step the feet a half step up. Now settle in. So that half step adjustment is part of your movement. And you can do this a few times just to really get used to it, but you're moving from up dog or cobra, down dog. Before you even get all the way up, step a half step in. So already that is a little bit more natural. So you got it? That's the first thing. I know I've said it like 50 million times, but keep that one in mind. So now let's go back to our sun salutation here. And what was the other one like from down dog to plank. So now if we move to plank, let's say for whatever reason, we did up dog, we moved to down dog, we have this slightly closer distance between the hands and feet because that's what feels better in down dog. And now we have to glide forward to plank. Well, if we just went straight to plank, that would put that angle at the wrist is ridiculous. Nobody would ever do a plank like that. It's uncomfortable. So of course, you'd have to move the feet back. How I accommodate for that movement is very similar. So before I even get to my full plank, as I start to glide, like at the beginning of the movement, I wiggle my feet back 2 or 3 times. And by wiggle, I just mean I kind of pop my heels to the side and shuffle back a little bit. And that is happening before I even get to my plank. So we're back to that idea that you're going to anticipate this adjustment. Anticipate the adjustment. And how many times you shuffle back is really not super important. That depends on how long your legs are, how long your torso is, where exactly you like to place the hands, So you don't have to count the number of times, but the point is that from your down dog, you anticipate the fact that you're going to have to adjust. So as you glide forward, wiggle back 1 or 2 times, and then you might adjust a little more. And then boom, you're ready for the rest of your sun salutation. Did you move your feet when we got back to down dog? Moved them a little bit. So that is the 2 points that I want you to take away from here. The two kind of locations within the sun salutation that you're gonna adjust the feet or the hands. I think adjusting the feet is easier than moving the hands. So the first one is when we are moving from up dog or cobra to down dog. Before you even settle into your down dog, the hips are gonna start to lift. You shuffle the feet in and lift the hips, and boom, you're in a comfortable down dog. The next one is when we move from down dog to plank. And as you start to shift the hips forward, you're gonna do the same thing. So before you settle into that plank, you glide forward, you gotta move the feet back, do a little wiggle, and then by the time you get to your final plank, you're ready to rock and roll. So, you got it? Those are the 2 things I want you to drill into your mind. And as you move through sun salutations, keep that rhythm in mind, and I promise it will make your whole yoga practice, your flow, every sun salutation you do feel a whole lot more stable, a lot smoother. You're gonna feel like you're shuffling around less, and these adjustments just become part of the movement. And I will again reiterate that everybody, all the teachers that you've practiced with who look like they're doing these things very smoothly, oh, they're hardly shuffling. They don't even have to adjust. How do they know the distance? They are adjusting. You just naturally will have to accommodate for this change in distance and length required for each pose. So they are moving. It's just we are so used to these movements that the shuffling and the adjustment is very, very, it's not very perceptible, right? So hopefully that helps. If you would like the rest of this class, it's actually, the full version of it is inside Bad Yogi Studio. And I have another question answered in this video too about how to stop the bottom foot cramping in single leg standing poses. So if you want to see the rest of this one, go ahead and jump down to the description below here. Tap the link, get a free 2-week trial to join Bad Yogi Studio and see how you like it. There's hundreds of classes, full-length classes, not just tutorials. There's some tutorials and something for literally every mood. So hopefully I'll see you there. Thanks for being here with me today, and I'll see you next time.